How far along are you guys into the season?
We were filming episode 5 last night, parts of episode 5, but we still have... This is probably the most ambitious show I've ever been a part of, and even though we're in episode 5, we haven't really finished
any of them.
The pilot, 2, 3, 4, so it's pretty ambitious.
How's it feel now to be at Comic-Con though and starting to put it out there?
Cool.
Yeah, I can't wait for the actual, like, when we can start, like, discussing the first season and what's happened, because everything that we're 5 episodes in, so we have, like, some really juicy stuff that we want to share. But,
we're all for it.
We've been in that position for a while now.
I know.
Of where we're just talking about the pilot, we're talking about the trailer, and there's so much more.
Yeah, and just being very sort of vague about the world. You know? Having said that, it's definitely exciting, and as you know, it's coming out in January, and we just saw the pilot again, and I gotta say, like, I saw it for the first time on a dinky television, and so watching it up on the big screen, I'm genuinely excited for the fans to see this. Yeah. It's a great feeling to it's not all the time that you watch something that you're a part of and you go, oh, wait a second, this is good.
But then also knowing what we know, the first thing we said after we watched it was like, can't wait for episode 2.
100%.
We know what happens.
Yes.
And it picks
invested.
up. Because we're filming a scene on Wednesday that takes place the next day in episode 2, and we're like, watching the pilot, it was actually good for us.
It was a good reminder.
It's a good reminder of what that day looked like, so that we're...
For sure, because that day was in March.
For me, it was last year.
Right.
When you guys were approached for the show, were you familiar with the source material at all beforehand? And if after you got the role, did you go back and read into it at all?
So I read Liz's script first, and loved the character of Brad and Amy, and I'd never done a genre in my career, but I thought it was, on the page, it didn't feel like your typical, like, vampire horror genre. And I felt like the core and the heart was that Amy Brad story, which I absolutely love because I have a daughter who's roughly about the same age. And knowing it was based on the trilogy of books, I went and read Justin's book immediately after my meeting with Liz and just fell in love with the book. And then, I don't know if any of you read the first book. It was a funny thing, because I read the first book and I go, Brad dies in the first book. Like in the first quarter of the book. I'm like, what are they trying to tell me? But I've read all 3 books, and I'm a huge fan of Justin's work. Have you read I keep telling you about, like, the books. I'm always like, oh, wait till you see what your character
will die in the first book.
No, I'm like, you're good, exactly. But what her character does in the second book
is very epic. But I read the first half of the first book, and it's stellar. I just remember, it's so funny, because I just remember having the conversation with Liz where she was like, it's not necessary, like, you can read it for interest and for sure, but of course it's based on the books, but it's not a carbon copy of what the books were, especially my character in the first season, because they're, sort of weaving our way in a little bit.
It probably took me a while, and because I'm such a huge fan of the books, it took me a while to understand that what we're doing as a TV show doesn't have to be the exact adaptation of the books. And speaking with Justin, he says that every time you read the book or you read the book, it's different from when I read the book. And every time I read the book over and over, it changes as well. And so it took me a while to say, okay, we're not doing a carbon copy of the book.
Yeah.
And then when you see episode 2 and 3 and 4 and on, you go like, oh my God, we're doing something just as
powerful and cool.
As the books. Granted, it's not exactly the same. So I know Some fans will be irked by it.
Sure, but probably only for a second, because the truth is they'll be so invested in the story anyway. I mean, it's more than inspired by the books. So it's like the characters and you know, all the characters that the fans love. But then, you know, it's also Liz's brilliance, which is, you know, Justin said it on the panel. It's like he wrote the book and Liz wrote the television show. And he's so excited about the television show that Liz is writing, which is our fans should know.
And he also said about a specific scene, that the scene at the river
Yes.
where I'm talking with her wasn't in his book. He says, but it fits in his story as well. He's like, those are the pieces that I didn't put into the book that fit seamlessly into the story and the narrative. So
how has reading the book informed your performance, or have there been times when it's like, no, I'm thinking too much the book, I need to think the...
I think, I've been talking to Justin about this. He's very descriptive and in the way he creates like a 4D image in your head when he discusses characters, and the adjectives that he uses, he doesn't repeat the same adjectives for any of the characters, any of the descriptions of the scenes and things like that. So my first impression of Brad was in the car with Doyle on his way to see Carter. This is in the book. And his description of Brad was my blueprint. So from there, I took that, and it shapes pretty much everything that Liz gives me. But I feel like I'm still true to that character in the book. We're just adding layers, especially our relationship as well. It's not, it's in the book, it's non-existent really, other than we had a relationship. But in our story, we're showing flashbacks of our past and what happened to our daughter, and why Brad is the way he is, and why Lila is the way she is. Which, that's entertainment.
And we get a little bit of that in the first episode, of course. We get teased that obviously something happened to your daughter. Will that take a while for us to kind of find out, or do we learn fairly quickly what happened to her?
No.
I think everything's drawn out.
Everything's drawn out as much as possible in 10 episodes, yeah.
So what can you guys kind of tell us about your relationship, and what can you kind of tease about that? And what we'll kind of see for you guys moving forward?
Can we tease anything?
Yes.
Obviously, like, you're helping him a lot in the first episode.
Yes.
Yeah, she helps me in the first episode. I think
Well, we can
there's a bit more help on the way
Yes.
with Lila.
Yes. Basically...
Oh, I have a fun one for
yeah.
people with the books.
Yeah.
Is that Lacey comes back. And the people in the books, that was a very fun character.
Giant. And yes. And so Lacey and Lila, that's a good tease, actually.
Sure.
Yeah, Lacey and Lila, we come together and we take on some stuff.
But that's the beauty of what Liz has done, is that there's characters that are in the books that are beloved, and she inserts them in a new way, but still keeps the roots the same. It's just, it's kind of fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
What she's done.
It is.
Gilder comes back, and all these characters. I'm like, oh my God, that's Gilder from the book.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
working in episode 5 right now. So, yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
The chemistry on screen between Brad and Amy in the car and those scenes they had together were really great. I mean, we just watched the screener, the pilot downstairs. How was that with your chemistry test beforehand? Was that instant chemistry, like, on screen, or can you talk about how you guys met?
No, our first day of meeting was probably on set, or when we did I'm trying to think back, it was a year ago that we probably met at a table read. But we had the luxury, and this doesn't always happen, but we had the luxury of shooting in a linear fashion. And so we shot, the very first scene was my first scene with her in the foster house, in the foster home. So we had sort of that, distance, and then towards the middle and the end of the show, we're closer. And we were able to progress that relationship in a natural fashion during the shoot. I don't think they ever plan that. It doesn't usually work out that way, but we had the luxury of doing that.
Do you have a favorite part, since it is a sci-fi, like a genre type of show? Is that different from just doing a straight-up television show with special effects and things like that? Is that something more fun for you guys? Are there scenes
It is
coming up?
such new territory for me. For you too. Like, when I tell you, never in a million years did I ever think I would be doing a show that would be like a Comic-Con show. Like literally, because it's not necessarily.
I've always wanted to. Like,
I've never really been. It's never been like. It's just never happened. And the interesting part is that my part actually is the least of it for now.
for now.
Of all the sci-fi and the effects and all of that stuff. But hopefully, I'm going to get to dabble in that world. But certainly, reading the scripts every couple weeks, they're so good, man. Like, this is so much more than a genre show. And it's not to demean saying like a genre is like whatever. It's just that it's so rich, it's so character driven, and it's just exciting. Like there's page turners in a really cool way that you care about all the characters.
Yeah,
It's really dope.
I had the luxury of being on a really big, high concept show for Fox before this one, Pitch, which had a lot of moving parts. This arguably has more moving parts and is so much bigger.
It's big, yeah.
It is. I'm always amazed at the scope of like what we're trying to shoot. And I'm like, this is a television show.
It's a television
It feels like
show.
a film. And we spent
Yeah.
yesterday on one scene. We spent 9 hours on one action scene where Brad meets a viral, and first time watching like a viral move and how they attack and all that stuff. Not to give them too much away, but we spent a lot of time, and that's something on television shows we don't have the luxury to do. But on this, I'm glad they're giving us that time because I think it'll really translate on screen, and the fans will appreciate it.
Totally. And just to add to that really quickly is that it was a reminder today watching the pilot again on the big screen. Our producers, we've got the Ridley Scott team. Like we've got like cinematic producers behind our show, and it shows. It's really exciting.